All right, welcome to day 4. We're going to come back and do this practice one after we talk about the homework. So we'll go to the homework first. So we should have a shift right 2, multiply y's by 3, and then shift up 2. So since we shifted right 2, we should have 2 as the middle value, 3, 4 is the next two biggest, 1, 0 is the ones below it. So 5, 8, and 14 were the easier ones. Let's talk about the two hard ones. When you sub in 1, you should have had 3 times 2 to the 1 minus 2 plus 2. That's 3 times 2 to the negative 1 plus 2. That's 3 times 1 over 2 plus 2. When we multiply this, we get 3 halves plus 2. 3 halves is 1 1/2 plus 2. So if you think about being at 1 1/2, go 2 to the right, you're now at 3 1/2. If we put in 0, we'll have 3 times 2 to the negative 2 plus 4. That's 3 times 1 over 2 squared plus 4. That's 3 times 1/4 plus 4. So you have 3, well, I don't know why I switched to plus 4. That's plus 2. That's 3/4 plus 2. So start at 3/4, go 2 to the right. Let's try it again. Start at 3/4, go 2 to the right. You're now at 2 3/4. For number 2, we're shifting right 3, multiply y's by 2, and then shift down 1. So let's look at one of the trickier ones. We'll look at the 1. So you'll have 2 times 3 to the 1 minus 3, and then a minus 1. That's 2 times 3 to the negative 2 minus 1. That's 2 times 1 over 3 squared minus 1. So you're doing 2 over 1 times 1/9 and then minus 1. That'll give you 2/9 minus 1. So start at 2/9, which is like here, and jump 1 to the left. So you're over here. When you cross over the y-axis, your fraction part is not going to be a 2/9. It should be the reverse. So we're at minus 7/9 when we do that, because it was 2/9 to get to the y-axis and then 7 more ninths for the whole. For the third one, you're shifting left 1, multiplying the y's by a half, and then reflecting over the x-axis. Now, if you did say multiply the y's by negative 0.5, that would be fine as well. That takes care of everything all at once. And then we're shifting up 3. So one of the tough ones, when you put in negative 3, you would eventually have negative 1/2 times 1/16 plus 3. That's negative 1 over 32 plus 3. So negative 1 over 32 would be a tiny negative here. So when you do 3 full jumps to the right, you would end up about there. We crossed over the y-axis, so it's not going to be 1/32. You can think of it as what would pair with it to give you 1. So that's why we have 2 31/32. And then our last one, we're shifting right 4. We're multiplying y's by negative 2. Or you could say reflect over the y-axis and multiply by 2. So you can split it up if you want, and then shift up 1. And we've got our t-table there. The tougher ones would have been the 2 23/25, 3 3/5, 4 -1, and so on. So we're going to do together one example, and we're just going to do the table. We're not going to graph it. So you can put this anywhere that you have space. So this is going to be a shift right 1. So we would want to put 1 in the middle of our table. 2 and 3 are bigger than it. 0 and -1 are smaller than it. So when we put in the 1, we'll have 2 times 3 to the 1 minus 1 minus 5. So we're going to have 2 times 3 to the 0 minus 5. That would be 2 times 1 minus 5. So 2 minus 5, which is -3. So that's our middle value. So next we'll put in 2. So that'll be 2 times 3 to the 2 minus 1 minus 5. That's 2 times 3 to the first minus 5. 3 to the first is just 3. 3 times 2 is 6. So 6 minus 5 would give us 1. Next, we'll put in the 3. Let's maybe do this part in our head. 3 minus 1 is 2. So we'll have 2 times 3 squared minus 5. That's 2 times 9 minus 5. So we'll have 18 minus 5, which is 13. So those are the whole number ones. Those should be the easier ones. When we put in 0 for x, we're going to get negative 1 in the exponent. This is where it starts getting more challenging. So 3 to the negative 1, hopefully we're comfortable with now, is 1/3. If we put the 2 over 1, that's 2/3 minus 5. So let's find 2/3 on here. So here's 2/3. We got to do 5 full jumps to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is negative 4 in some fraction. We crossed over the y-axis, so it shouldn't just be 2/3. It should be its complement, essentially, what gets it to 1, so it's minus 4 and 1/3. Now all that's going to change when we put in the negative 1, we'll have negative 2 in the exponent. So this will end up as 3 squared in the bottom, so that'll be 9, so we'll end up with 2/9. Well, if you do 2/9 minus 5, we'll just end up with 4 and 7/9. All right, so if we go to packet page 6, we'll look at our new thing for today. So we're going to find the equation of an exponential function when given 2 points. All the ones we look at today are going to flatten off at the x-axis. So because of that, our base setup is going to be a times b to the x. We'll see in the coming days when it's not flattening off the x-axis, you got to add or subtract a value on the end. So we'll start with that. And what we do is we take these values, which are x's and y's, and we're going to sub them in to get 2 equations. So we'll put the 8 in for y, we'll put the 0 in for x, and that'll give us 8 equals a times b to the 0. Well, the other one, the x and the y are the same, so we'll have 2 equals a times b to the second. So now this is the big new thing. When we have our 2 equations, we're going to divide our equations. And we'll always put the equation with the bigger exponent on top. 2 is bigger than 0, so we'll start with this one. So we're going to take the 2 from the left side of that equation over the 4 from the over the 8 from the left side of the other equation. Then we're going to take the ab squared from the left or the right side of this equation over ab to the 0 from the right side of the other equation. So we divided the left sides by the left sides, the rights by the rights, and we knew which ones to put on top based on which one had the bigger exponent. Well, 2/8 just reduces to 1/4. Over on the right, a divided by a, those divide out, and then when you divide, you subtract the exponent. So we just get b to the second. Well, now we just take the square root. Square root of 1 is 1, square root of 4 is 2, so b is just a half. So we have our b value. We just need to find our a value. If you have something raised to the 0, that one will always be easier to work with. So let's sub the b value in. We'll have a times 1/2 to the 0. Well, anything to the 0 is 1, so this is a times 1, so our a is just 8. We'll write the equation. Y equals 8 times 1/2 to the x. If your b value is in parentheses, or is a fraction, it needs to be in parentheses. So it's a good idea. Just put your b value always in parentheses, and that'll take care of it. So that's basically what we're going to practice today. We're going to do 5 more examples of that. 3 of them will be pretty similar to that, and 2 will get a little bit harder. So we've got our x and y, x and y. So we're going to have -2 equals a times b to the -1. Then for the other one, we're going to have -4 equals a times b to the 0. And that's from the fact that our general setup is y equals a times b to the x. We're going to divide our equations and have the one with the bigger exponent on top. 0 is a bigger number than -1. So our 0 equation will go on top. We'll have -4 over -2 equals ab to the 0 over ab to the -1. On the left, those divide to give us 2. On the right, the a's wipe out. Now here's where you got to be careful. We're going to subtract our exponents. 0 minus a -1. Minus a minus gives us a plus, so that's just b to the first. So b is just 2. If you have an exponent of 0, sub into that one, that's easier. So we have -4 equals a times 2 to the 0. Anything to the 0 is 1, so this will be a times 1. Or in other words, a is just -4. So to write our equation now, we have y equals -4 times 2 to the x. Don't forget to write your equation. It's a common mistake. People will find a and b and then just not write their equation. Moving on to 3, we've got our x's and y's. So we'll fill them into y equals a times b to the x. So we'll have -3 equals a times b to the 0. For the other one, we'll have -6 equals a times b to the first. Bigger exponent equation goes on top. So that's our one on the right-hand side in this case. So we're going to have -6 over -3 equals ab to the first over ab to the 0. If we divide our equations, the left side divides to give us 2. The a's divide out, and 1 minus 0 gives us 1, so we just have b to the first, which means b is just 2. If you have an exponent of 0, sub it back into that one. That'll be easier. So we'll do the one on the left. -3 equals a times 2 to the 0 by filling in the 2 for b. Anything to the 0 is just 1. So -3 is equal to a times 1. A times 1 is just a, so our a is -3. Our final equation, we have y equals -3 times 2 raised to the x. We'll look at one more example like this on the top of page 7, and then we'll get slightly harder. So the first thing we want to do, we've got a 1.25 here. That's 1 1/4, or in other words, 5/4. It's easier to work with fractions when you're working without a calculator. So we have x and y, x and y. So our two equations, when we sub into y equals a times b to the x, is going to be 5/4 equals a times b to the -2. And then the other one will have 5 equals a times b to the 0. 0 is a bigger number than -2, so the right-hand equation is going on top. We're doing 5 divided by 5/4 equals ab to the 0 over ab to the -2. Well, over on the left, that might be a little tricky. Anytime you have a fraction within a fraction, write your division horizontally. So we'll do 5 divided by 5/4, and back in middle school, you did keep, change, flip. So that was 5 times, and then flip the fraction to 4 over 5. Well, multiply straight across. When you multiply fractions, that's 20 over 5, which is just 4. So on the left here, we really just get 4. The a's divide out, and be really careful when subtracting your exponents. We're doing 0 minus a -2. So that becomes plus, so we'll really have b to the second. We're going to take the square root of both sides. We'll get b is equal to 2. If you have an equation with 0 in the exponent, use that one, it's easier. So it's 5 equals a times 2 to the 0. Anything to the 0 is 1, so that's 5 equals a times 1. Or in other words, we get a equals 5. To finish off, write your equation. So we have 5 times 2 raised to the x. Okay, if it's a whole number, you don't have to put it in parentheses, but if it's a fraction, you do have to have it in parentheses. So if you just do it always, then you'll make sure you have it. All right, two last ones we're going to look at. The one difference to these last two is we're not going to have a point that has an x value of 0. But we're going to follow the same process in solving. So we have our x's and our y's, and we're going to sub it into y equals a times b to the x. So the first one will have 1 equals a times b to the negative 2. And then the second one, we're going to have 1/2 equals a times b to the negative 1. Negative 1 is a bigger number than negative 2, so our equation on the right will go on the top. We're going to have 1/2 over 1 is equal to ab to the negative 1 over ab to the negative 2. Anything divided by 1 is just itself, so we get a 1/2 on the left. The a's divide out, and when we divide, subtract our exponents. Be really careful subtracting your exponents. Negative 1 minus a negative 2. That becomes a plus. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1, so we'll just have b to the first. So our b is just a 1/2. Now here's where this is going to be a little trickier. We don't have one that's raised to the 0. If you can avoid negative exponents, you want to, but we can't avoid them here. They both have negative exponents. So let's sub in the right-hand one. We'll have 1/2 is equal to a times, we'll put in 1/2 for b to the negative 1. Well, let's take that off to the side, the 1/2 to the negative 1. That's really 1 to the negative 1 over 2 to the negative 1. When you have negative exponents, you switch where they are in the fraction. So that's 2 to the first over 1 to the first. Well, that's really 2 over 1, which is just 2. So this is really 1/2 equals a times 2. Oops, I don't know why I wrote 4. 1/2 equals a times 2. So we'll divide both sides by 2. And we've got a fraction within a fraction, so let's write it horizontally. 1/2 divided by 2. This is really 2 over 1. Let's do keep, change, flip. 1/2 times 1/2. When you multiply fractions, multiply straight across, we'll get 1/4. So this is really just 1/4 equals a. So if we write out our equation, we get y equals 1/4 times 1/2 to the x. And our last problem for this video, same idea. We're going to start with y equals a times b to the x. We have our x's and our y's, so we'll sub those in. Our first equation will have 1/2 equals a times b to the first. Our second equation will have 2 equals a times b to the third. We're going to divide our equations. 3 is the bigger exponent, so that one will come on top. We'll have 2 divided by 1/2 is equal to ab to the third over ab to the first. On the left, you have a fraction within a fraction. So let's do our division horizontally. 2 divided by 1/2. We'll do keep, change, flip. So that's 2 times 2 over 1, which is really just 2 times 2, which is 4. The a's divide out. When we subtract our exponents, we get b squared. Take your square root of both sides, and we'll get b is equal to 2. Now, we don't have 0 as an exponent. Don't have negatives, though, so it shouldn't be too bad. Let's do the b to the first one. That might be the easier option. So we have 1/2 equals a times 2 to the first. So that's 1/2 equals a times 2. We actually just did this a second ago, but we'll do it again in case you don't remember. We'll write it horizontally. 1/2 divided by 2. This is really 2 over 1. Do your keep, change, flip. That's 1/2 times 1 over 2. And when you multiply straight across, you get 1/4. So this again gives us that a is 1/4. So our equation would be y equals 1/4 times 2 raised to the x. Now, when you do your homework ones, you'll be doing equations just like this, but it also asks you to tell your transformations. So tell any transformations that went on as well when you do each question. Have a great rest of your day.